Welcome back, good friends. Brian from Apex Detail here. The last piece of the Aero kit for the C7 Corvette Stingray is the Wickerbill Spoiler, and that's what we will be installing today. Comes in 3 pieces plus the hardware. Everything is ready to go, so let's get this started. If you don't have a spoiler, there are a few Corvette C7s without the spoiler on the back. There is a template. The very first thing we want to do is remove the tail light bezels, and they're just plastic with clips. And in order to protect the tape, because we will be prying right in the center to start to loosen those bezels, and I'm going to put 2 layers of the masking tape there so the nylon or the plastic prying tool will not harm the paint. That will bring us to the 11-piece Eastwood Pry Removal Master Kit. Pick out the tool that suits you and remove the taillight bezels. Piece of cake, just give them a good tug, it'll pull off. Again, those are just clips holding on the bezels. Moving on to the next step, there is a rubber seal that is attached to plastic trim. That's at the rear end of the trunk. Pull it forward towards the seats and up, and it'll snap right out. That reveals 10 T10 star head screws. They all have to be removed. With those removed, we can move down a little bit to where we pulled the bezels out from the taillights, and on each side there is a screw right there. If you can shine the light, you'll see it right away, not far in there. Make sure you have your hand in there while you're unscrewing it. If you lose it and drop it, who knows where it's going to fall. There's a lot of stuff in between the bumper skin and the rear of the car. There are hydraulic pumps and fans and radiators and hoses and wires. And there it is, T10. Let's hop over to the driver's side, do the exact same thing. I know these cars up to the C7 model, like the back of my hand. Now, the new C8 that's coming out, that is completely redesigned and just a whole different car. I'm going to have to learn those from scratch. Looking forward to it, though. And it's great that Junior likes to help me, and he's always here at the garage with me, but when he's shining the light and he has the light in front of my field of view, it doesn't really help too much. He's a great kid, though. That'll bring us to the next step. We have the rear mud flaps back here, or, well, they're going to be replaced because they don't really serve much of a purpose at all. But there's 3 bolts under here, 2 in a little bit further towards the center of the car. Down below, we have to remove those, and then we can just unsnap those so-called mud flaps. A total of 10 9/32 bolts under here to remove, and we're ready to move on to the next step. From there, the factory guards just snap out. That will reveal 2 T10 starhead bolts that are waiting to be removed in there as well. Hop over to the other side and pop off that guard. We have 2 10mm bolts awaiting us in this area right above the exhaust tips back here. Just shine a light in there, you'll see them right away. With those removed, I'm just going to slide over the box that it was shipped in. It's actually the perfect height if you tip it over onto its side and slide it under there for the bumper to come back and rest on. I just have 4 more bolts, the ones I showed you inside the guards or the mud flaps, and then a couple snaps that are holding the rear bumper on. However, to pull it back, there are a lot of wires and hoses and a bunch of other things to remove from the inside. That we won't have to do. We just have to get it back far enough to get to the bolts, the underneath of the lid for the rear bumper, that we can get the 10mm nuts for the stock OEM spoiler. Like I said, it just pops right back and just gently lay it on the back of the box and tilt it back. And now we're ready to get to the tail lights. Taillights are held in by 4 10mm nuts. You only have to remove the top 2. It will lean forward enough that you can get to the bolts for the OEM spoiler with those removed. Loosen up both sides and they'll lean forward. With those slightly out of the way, there are 10 studs with 10mm nuts that we have to loosen on the underneath decking of the rear bumper here. That will let us remove the OEM spoiler, and then we can clean up and get the new one on there. From there, just gently pry up on one side, and it'll pop right up out of the holes. And that reveals yet another area that needs to be cleaned. I thought I would have had that all done by now, but I keep finding new areas every time I look at it that need to be spruced up a bit. No problem, we're going to take care of that. So now we have everything laid out, the kit itself. We have the main spoiler deck, the 2 Wickerbills, and the hardware. The first thing from the hardware kit to install would be the cushion. This isn't double-sided tape. This is just cushion to reduce noises and make sure that the nuts and bolts stay snug. These threaded studs have to be inserted next, and those will go down through the original holes from the OEM spoiler. Again, if you don't have a spoiler, they send a template that you can drill your own holes, and that's where you attach the spoiler base to. Then the Wickerbills will be attached to the base itself. We'll go through that step by step. Those could be just, you don't have to torque them down, guys. Just get it a little bit snug with a regular screwdriver. And yet some more foam cushioning to be placed around the studs. With the base of the spoiler set and ready to go, we can put it on the deck of the rear bumper here, insert the studs through the OEM holes, and we could start to get those 10mm nuts run from one side to the other and snug it down. Okay, with that done, move on to the next step, which is to secure the taillights once again. From there, we can lift up the rear bumper, snap it back into place, and replace all of those bolts that we removed at the beginning of the video. I will spare you from seeing all of that again, so we'll skip forward to putting the Wickerbill on each end of the base of the spoiler. Before we do, we have some more cushion spacers to put in there. The outline I point to right here, that's where some more cushioning goes. Now it's time to center the Wickerbill. It's easier if you put the Torx head fasteners in through the Wickerbill first, line it up, and start to thread it in then. It's the easiest way to do it. If you're using double-sided tape, it's probably the only way to do it. These here are T15 Trox head screws, and they're also powder-coated. So just like I showed you when we were installing the front splitter, so you can either use a paper towel to lay on top of the Torx head and then put the socket in from there so you don't chip it, or you can use a plastic head. Obviously, these don't get torqued down either. They just get nice and snug, and every once in a while, come back and check them. Snug them up a little bit. They could vibrate loose. Who knows? And that's all there is to it. It's not hard. It is time consuming just because of all the snaps and the nuts and bolts you have to remove to get to the actual spoiler itself. But I love the way it looks. Again, more aggressive. This is a stage 2. The stage 3 will give you a clear or a smoked centerpiece to go across there. And they have it like that so you can turn, you can see out of your mirror, see what's behind you. So now we have everything installed. The entire Aero kit is done. It is polished. It's cleaned, it's protected, it gives it just a whole different look. I really like it, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed me bringing you along for the ride in the installation. One of my passions is working on these Corvettes, on these cars, and that has to go, a lot further than just detailing. I love working on them mechanically and painting them as well.